Good day, subscribers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am Jeremy. This is the Financial Education Channel, and today my voice is just coming back. If you notice, my voice is still a little rough, so I have to speak a little quieter than I usually do. CES was a long event, and my voice is just so freaking done. But it's coming back, it's getting better, and I've been like craving to do a video, and I haven't been able to do one last few days, so we're finally getting to do it today. We're talking about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Robert Kiyosaki's book that is probably the most popular personal finance and business book ever in creation. So I have this book linked in the comment section today, guys, if you want to purchase it. I think it's a fabulous book. I think it's probably one of the best books you can ever buy. I checked it out on Amazon. It's like $7. So the link there is like a $7 book. So we're going to get into this. We're going to get into what he's basically talking about, explaining a lot of things he explains. Obviously, the book goes way into more in depth. This video can't be like a 8-hour video because that's what it would have to be to cover everything. I'm just covering the biggest points that I think are like game-changing points for your mentality and the way you look at things and the kind of the macro picture, and kind of think to yourself, where am I at? Well, what category do I put myself in? Those are the kind of things we're going to talk about today, guys. Hit that thumbs up button if you enjoy. Let's get into this. So first off, I have an illustration here. We're going to go over 5 main points today here, guys. So the first one being this quadrant. This quadrant here, what does this symbolize? So basically what this symbolizes is pretty much every person, fits into at least one of these categories, every adult person. So most adult people are gonna fit into this category right here. What the E's stand for is employees. Employees. These people make other people money. These people don't make money, they get a paycheck. So most Americans, most Europeans, most people in developed countries are going to fall in this category E. The E's, they're looking for a safe, secure job that has benefits. That's basically what every E will tell you, looking for a safe, secure job that has benefits. So most people fit into this category. Once again, they do not make money, they make money for other people, and they receive a paycheck for their time. So that's what an E is. And I used to be an E. I was an E for a long time. I've moved down to this category now. I'm an S. An S stands for small business owners or specialists. So specialists meaning it could be a doctor, it could be a lawyer, it could be a dentist, something like that. Somebody that specializes in something, has a small operation, a small business owner where you're self-employed, you don't really have any employees, you basically do all the work yourself. That's what S's are. So I'm an S now, and it takes a lot to jump from an E to an S because you're basically risking all that safe security for who knows what. Could be a lot, could be not a lot, who knows. But that's the category I fall in right now. That's what an S is. Now, the goal is to get over to this side. This is the side you really want to be on. The B stand for bosses, for business owners. These people make money from other people. So if you want to ever be rich, really rich in life as far as wealthy goes, you need to be in this category over here on this side, guys. These are big business owners. These people make money from other people. They have employees that do all the tasks and whatnot. They just kind of oversee the operations and do very little effort. So these people make money off of other people. They make money off of the E's. This stands for investors. Investors meaning could be stock market investors, could be real estate investors. These people have their money make themselves make money. Basically, they turn their money into more money. That's what an investor does. Now, you can be an E and still be an I. I was an E and I was an I at the same time. I'm an S now and I'm still an I. I'm a small business owner and I'm also an investor. So you can definitely cross over here. This one's kind of hard to do. It's really challenged because you got to start at being an S, then you have to build up till you get to the point where you're over here, you're a B and you're a boss and you have 10, 20, 50, 100, 1,000 employees or whatever, and you're just overseeing the whole operation. So this is probably the hardest one to do, but you can definitely be an E and an I or an S and an I. The worst one is if you're just an E and you're nothing else. If you're just an E and you're nothing else, it's going to be very hard to get. You're never going to get rich. I hate to tell that to anybody. You're never, ever going to get rich by being an E unless you're also an I. So you can live a decent middle class lifestyle, you can retire and things like that, but you'll never be rich. You're never going to be able to buy, any house you want or car you want or things like that, because you're just an E. You're not making your money into end of money. You're just having your money managed and things like that. So this is the biggest thing out of the book, because this is kind of make you think in your mind, okay, what am I here, and how do I get over to this side, because this is the ideal side you really want to be on. This is the true side you want to be on. So with that, guys, I'm going to take a drink of water and we're going to get into the next 2 through 5 points now. Okay, guys, now we're getting into point number 2. So point number 2, Robert Kiyosaki brings up, in this one, I kind of agree with him to a certain extent. I also disagree with him to a certain extent, and we'll kind of get into that. So basically, his thing is, a house is not an asset. Things that make you money are assets. This, I agree with him in the respect that, yes, things that make you money are assets. And if you just bought a house and you just starting out with a mortgage or whatnot, and you're the first few years of that mortgage, it's absolutely a liability. A house is absolutely a liability. But on the other hand, I disagree with him, because if you, let's say you own that house outright, you've paid off that house fully, how is that not an asset? If you have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in equity in that home, how is that not an asset at that point? So I agree with him in a certain respect that if you, in the first few years of buying a house and you've got a mortgage on it, it's a liability at the end of the day, because you're probably down on that house. It probably cost you more money. You're putting money into it. It's not making you any money. But if you own that house outright, it's an asset, in my opinion, because you have hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity in that home. So I agree with him, disagree with him. It's a very controversial point, that number 2. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. Is a house an asset? Is it a liability? I would love to hear from you guys on that point. So number 3. This I preach all the time to you guys on any personal finance video, pretty much. It's not how much money you make, it's about how much money you spend. So once you get up to a certain level, let's say you make $50K a year, right? That could be plenty as long as your expenses are very low. Someone that's making, let's say, $75K a year, they could be doing better than someone that's making $400K a year. Because let's say that person is making $400K a year, right? Let's say that, well, after taxes, they only get about $275,000, right? So they got $275,000. If their expenses are $270,000 a year, then only leaves them with $5,000 of extra money at the end of the day. Whereas if that person that's making $75,000 after taxes, they probably have 60 or 55, something around there. If they're only spending $25,000, $30,000 in expenses a year, they have an extra $20,000, $25,000 left over at the end of the pie. So the person making $75,000 could actually be doing a lot better off than the person making $400,000 a year. So you gotta, no matter what your income is, you gotta watch what your expenses are, because that's what equates at the end of the day if you have money left over to then go ahead and invest and have your money make you into money and really get ahead of the game, guys. So I preach that all the time, and I absolutely agree with him on that. I think it's a fabulous point that he brings up there. Number 4, Robert Kiyosaki basically says, the poor spends all their money. And it's basically true. The poor does spend all their money. They don't have very much coming in, so they pretty much have to spend it. The middle class saves some money. The rich know how to multiply their money. So that's the difference between the classes. The poor are spending all their money. Every dime that comes in their pocket is going right out the window. The middle class, they spend most of it, but some they do save over and whatnot. The rich, they know how to multiply that money to make more money and more money. And the rich get richer by doing that. They know how to multiply their money through either stock investments, through real estate, through bonds, through a lot of different types of investments. That's how you really can get rich in life, is if you know how to multiply your money, if you know how to keep continually making your money into money. So that's another big thing here, guys. So number 5, the last one we're talking about, this is a very interesting one, and I think it's one that we should all look at in ourselves. It's called the game of money, and I'm going to show you another illustration here, guys. And I'm a sports person, so I love anything that has to do with a game. But basically, what you have in the game of life, or in the game of money, you should say, you have basically quarters to the game. You have a first quarter, which is your age 25 to 35, second quarter 35 to 45, You have a halftime, you have third quarter 45 to 55, fourth quarter 55 to 65. Then you also have a pregame. I started making good money in the pregame section. So most people don't get started making money and start, getting out on their own and whatnot till the first quarter. I was already doing that in pregame, so I was fortunate in that respect. But let's assume, most people start in the first quarter. This is when they start kind of getting a decent job. They move out of their parents. They graduate college if they went to college, things like that. Then they move into the second quarter. They find a wife or a husband. They have kids, all that kind of stuff. That happens toward the end of the first quarter and beginning of the second quarter generally. Then you kind of get to halftime. And in halftime is a time where people either go through like a midlife crisis, like, oh my gosh, I have nothing, saved up. I have no money. I'm never going to be able to retire. Or it's a position where you can be like, damn, I'm doing really good in life. I'm like way ahead of the game. My goal personally, I would say most people's goal should be when they get to this halftime, that if you could say you never have to work again. If you could say, you know what, I'm so well off right now that I don't even have to work into the third and fourth quarter because I could just live off my savings and my investments and whatnot for the rest of my life and live a decent lifestyle. If everybody can do that, that would be fabulous. Personally, when I get to the end of the first quarter, I want to be able to say that. I want to basically be able to say, I'm set for life. I only work now if I want to work. Whereas right now, I have to work because I have to work. I can't, pay for all the bills and whatnot. I have a family. I can't do that. I have to run my business, my photography and my videography business. I have to work. If I get at the end of the first quarter and be able to say, I don't even have to play the second and third and fourth quarter unless I want to play those quarters, that would be freaking awesome. It's almost like a NFL team or an NBA team or whatever team. If they are blowing out the other team so bad, at halftime they'll pull the starters because they don't even need to play them anymore at that point. They could put in the backups and have them play the third and fourth quarter. So when you get to halftime, what position are you in? 75% of the people that watch this channel are in these three: pregame, first quarter, second quarter. But for the 25% of you that watch these videos, I would love to hear from you on where you're at and where you were at when you reach halftime. Were you in like a crap, I'm in a really bad financial position? Were you in like, man, I'm in a really good financial position. I'm exactly where I want to be. How did you feel? So third quarter is at 45 to 55 range. This is a range when you're like, man, you start thinking about retirement at this point. Like, man, retirement, it's going to be here before I know it. My kids are starting to move out. They're going to college. If they're going to college and getting jobs and things like that, well, where am I at? And then the fourth quarter is like, you can either be that quarter that you're like, crap, man, I got nothing saved for and I have hardly any good working years left. If I'm an employee, they're going to be kicking me out the door at 65. I'm not going to have the energy I used to have and those kinds of things. I want to just go on vacation and relax and enjoy grandchildren and things like that. So that's the quarter that you can either panic and then you got to take it into overtime and get some crappy job that you might not even want, because a lot of good companies, they don't want employees over 65, just to be completely honest, because I don't know why. I don't even want to try to explain it. Just a lot of companies, once you get over 65, they don't really want you anymore for whatever reason. So you gotta be in a position of power really by halftime. So that way in the third quarter, if you're going into that third quarter, you're in a well financial position. And that fourth quarter is just like basically coasting at that point. It's just finishing out, adding more money, and just making sure that retirement is as good as possible and those kinds of things, and shoring up whatever you need to shore up in life. So that's the game of money in life, and that's kind of how to think about it, and that's an important way of thinking about it, in my opinion. Do you want to be way ahead? Does your score want to be way ahead after the first quarter? Or do you want to still be, a tie game going into that second quarter, or even behind going into halftime? That's the worst if you're behind, guys. So think about this game of money in whatever, basically as you go along in life, and you'll be able to kind of keep track of, where am I at? I'm in the first quarter right now. Am I where I'm supposed to be? Am I meeting my goals? Those kinds of things, guys. So this is kind of Rich Dad, Poor Dad broken down, and kind of Robert Kiyosaki's basically whole mind of the way he thinks, the broadness of what he thinks. Now, there's some people that don't like the book, mainly because, one, they feel like they're categorized by the book, and people hate to feel categorized. They feel like they're being talked down upon because they're put in the E category or something like that. Another reason is because he doesn't really go into super detail on how to become, like, the quadrant we talked about. He doesn't really go into super detail on how to become an S, or how to become a B, or how to be a successful I, those kinds of things. So that's why some people dislike the book. It just speaks in broad strokes. But I think the broad strokes is what really gets your mind going. And then once you get that, you can find people like me that talk deeply into, investing and things like that. Or you can basically search for yourself and find, okay, how do I actually start a small business? How do I invest in bonds or stocks or real estate or whatever? You can kind of search for yourselves, but without the framework that he talks about in that book, you can't really get into that detailed stuff because you don't really know where you're at, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this today. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Leave me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Leave me a comment if you've read this book before, you're planning on buying it. I would just love to hear from you guys on your opinion on everything we talked about, those 5 points today. If you have not subscribed, you may want to. We talk personal finance on the channel, entrepreneurship. I'm an entrepreneur. I talk a lot about my business tips I give out. And we also talk stock market investing and how to be a successful investor. Thank you for watching, guys, and have a great day.